Unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is one day we're all going to wake up to a banking issue. It's too late, right? So we wake up on a Monday morning and the banks are closed and cash isn't available and we're going to digital currency and whatever they have planned for us. It's going to be too late. And that's the hard part, is people are going to wait for that moment and then react, and it's going to be too late.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for November 15th through 22nd, 2022, while supplies last. This week we have a Queen Elizabeth special, 2 coins bearing the portrait of the late monarch. First, we have a silver Britannia at only $8 over spot, while the Royal Mint has already started minting King Charles commemorative coins. They made the unexpected decision that this first run of 2023 Britannia would still have the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Our second special this week is silver maples. We secured a shipment of backdated silver maples, including full mint-sealed monster boxes from years prior to 2022, and they are available at $8 over spot as well. The silver maple, made by the Royal Canadian Mint, is 4/9 fine and was the first bullion coin minted to that exemplary purity. They are one of the most recognized bullion coins in the world. Both our specials this week, the Silver Britannia and the Silver Maple, are $8 over spot while supplies last. They come in tubes of 25 and boxes of 500 and are IRA eligible. If you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. Our number for all orders is 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're going to try something new tonight. We've done things similar to this in the past with Home Sweet Prepared Home and other stories of individuals who've taken a journey of awakening and making concrete steps into preparedness. But this is more how I became a stacker, or my journey into preparedness with a financial twist. We're speaking with Bill M., who lives in Florida. He's been a returning client and gradually, or not so gradually sometimes, consolidating his strategy on a very focused approach. But it didn't start out that way, and we're grateful for Bill joining us to tell us how he got started in this. Maybe something we can all relate to, maybe some lessons we can all learn from. So Bill, thanks for joining us on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you, Donegan. Happy to be here.
You've been a long-time returning client, so I know you've got kind of convicted and convinced of the actions that you want to take care of yourself, but it doesn't always start out so clear to us. Can you take us back to the beginning of kind of where you started this journey towards preparedness, and what was your awakening moments that got you even interested or even caring about this? Because most people don't. And what got you interested? Maybe you're from Florida, it's severe weather, that's a natural. But anyway, could you walk us through that part?
Yeah, sure. Try to keep it simple, but maybe 5 years ago, I started looking a little more closely into the conspiracy theories that are out there, and I started digging a little deeper. And I got curious about some things. And while I was doing that, I stumbled across your Left and Preppers channel, among a few others, but yours stood out, and I started watching your channel. And there was a gold dealer, a popular online gold dealer, that did some advertising on your channel. And I started buying a couple of coins, a couple of bars, stocking up on food in the closet and water, having things in my Jeep ready for a bug out. And, of course, in 2017, 18, that opens you up to your entire family laughing at you at the holiday table and, calling you a crackpot and all that. But that's okay. I handled that. But I learned, just from, and one of the things that I heard, the advice was to start small, right? Stacking is a journey. It's a process. And you're better off taking small steps so you learn rather than going all in and getting burned, and then you got to unwind it. So I literally took that to heart. And my first silver purchases were 10 random bars, 10-ounce silver bars. So I have I got a couple of Sunshine Mint bars. I got a couple of Republic Mint bars, which, Republic doesn't even exist anymore, I think, the Mint. I have a couple of Engleharts, a Mexican Aztec bars, and a generic. So that was where I started. And, 5 years ago, each of those 10-ounce bars cost me maybe $150. So, $15 all in for the price of silver. I still didn't make a mistake, right? 5 years later, that's still a decent purchase. And then I started going into the coins. I did the Eagles, a tube, what is it, 20 in a tube. So, I started there, and, and that Christmas, I think in 2018, I gave my small stack to my kids as Christmas gifts. And I told them, I said, one day you're going to understand what this is all about. I said, I'm not sure I do right now either, but, someday in the future, we're going to understand. Again, a little bit of laughter, but for the most part, my kids, they took my word for it. That was 2018. And, I kept building the stack, and then the pandemic comes, and now all of a sudden I don't seem so crazy, right? I got food in my pantry. I have some extra coins in the the sock drawer kind of thing, and now I don't look so crazy, and that was one turning point for me, right? So an event really happened, and the preparation that that I followed your advice on, and investing, all started to make more sense, right? And then I just kept going, and I started adding to my stack. And the next turning point was when you became a broker. So I was buying my coins and bars online, and they have good customer service, but you don't really get to talk to a broker. Nobody really can explain to you what you're doing and what the strategies are and what the ups and downs are. And a big turning point was when I called you pretty much right at the beginning, and I don't know if I bought right away, but watching your videos and calling you once in a while with questions really helped gain my confidence. And over time, I went from those random bars to now, I have not only a personal collection in vaults, I have an IRA that I'm transferring dollar cost averaging in, and I have a significant 20 to 30% of my net worth in metals, and I'm very happy.
There was a moment, and maybe it was the COVID kind of wake up of the impositions, controls, restrictions, things no longer as they used to be could suddenly happen with overnight or very quickly. Maybe that was a key moment for you, but I mentioned to you that seemed like there was a time, I don't know, it was about a year ago or a little bit more, when you suddenly seemed galvanized. You seemed suddenly just like, not just like randomly dabbling and picking and accumulating kind of on a little nibbling basis, but you suddenly had a like this master strategy about multiple vaults in different parts of the country, and really ramped up your quantity and the intensity with which you were focused on this. What was it that tipped the scales for you to this becoming a real driving focus and generated that strategy for you?
Well, I guess that now we're talking the more advanced stages, right? So, the momentum of not trusting the system, the momentum of not trusting the government was building. And I think there's a couple things that happened. I think what happened in Canada with the truckers, I think that was a big wake-up call, right? That was the first time that in my lifetime, right, the government was reaching in way out of what you would think was the constitutional ability of the government to confiscate bank accounts, lock you out of your own bank accounts. That was one. But also, I listen. I'm in the financial business, and I listen to people like Alistair and Bill Holter and people like that who really know what they're talking about, at least from my perspective, and they have increasingly raised the alarm. And so that got me even more interested. And then, very simply, I called my 401k plan to ask about in-service withdrawals, and because I'm still employed, and I didn't think it was going to be possible, but I was able to move half my IRA out of half of my 401k out of my 401k, and that opened up, the whole door of working with you and if I could say the company, new direction. And then the question of now it's critical mass, right? Where do you put all this metal? And I've been working with you on the storage options of Dakota and the Brinks vaults in Miami and Salt Lake. So now I went from, an amateur, prepper and coin collector to, a significant amount of my wealth in metal. And then that took me to a whole nother level of asking you questions and doing my research and cross-checking with other people in the business that, that talk about this. And as I worked with you and looked into the research, I got more and more confidence to do that. And, there's like a poker term, right? When you are ready to go all in. And so I wouldn't say all in, but I was willing to push many more chips into the middle of the table.
Yeah, to execute on a bigger part of your strategy. Now, along the way, things weren't always so smooth. I understood just briefly in passing that what triggered you to reach out to me about this at this time was the interview that Andy and I did, because I was basically complaining to him that I was getting more and more frequent stories told me by clients about how they had gotten hurt financially by working with certain dealers that really focus on, gouging clients who are trying to set up IRAs. And he said it was unfortunately something he had been aware of for decades, and it's getting more common. But you ran up against, you came in encounter with at least one outfit along the way, I understand, where it was really non-competitive pricing, and that triggered you, as I understood, to reach out and say, hey, I've got a story to tell. Can you help us understand what it was that you ran into?
Yeah, sure. So, what you and the others always tell people is, start simple, do your own homework, and deal with trusted people. So I actually took that to heart, right? So I started slow. I definitely did my own research, and I work with you guys. Now, in the do your own research part, I challenged other dealers, with questions of why I should do business with them and what's their position on certain things. And I sat in front of some of the people that we all, see on video and well known. And I dealt with the online as well. And I did my research. And a lot of the things that you and Andy was speaking about, I never was offered, there's a couple things you guys raised, is I was never offered fractional coins. So I never had to relate to that. However, I've been offered in my journey generic rounds and generic bars that are supposed to be, super special, collector's items with double markup. This is before premiums were as high as they are now, right? When premiums were, 10 to 20%. I was offered 100% premiums on special owl coins or, Trump coins or whatever they were offering. So that I experienced. And the biggest one that I experienced is the whole numismatic question. And I think you've had a couple of videos on the numismatic question. I get it. I get the concept that there are some rare coins out there that may hold their value as collectors items. And, there's been past confiscation where certain coins were exempt. I understand that. However, it was hard for me to justify, and you guys help with this, explain it, is paying 5 times the price of spot, hoping that you hit the jackpot with your lucky coins. And I was offered that, and I've seen that. And that triggered me to reach out to you because it is very common, and they do very fancy presentations, and they're very convincing. And there is, I think, like Andy said, right, there's half-truths and the rest of it's misleading. And yeah, there's half-truths that these numismatic coins could have value. And and they were not confiscated in the past, but is it the right value for us all now? I don't think is a slam dunk as what is presented. So I saw that as a change. I was coming to them with my IRA. I could see how an unsophisticated person who had not done their homework was not shy about getting up and leaving. That could be pressured to selling or, to buying. I could see how people could be easily duped. And that disturbed me a little bit. And that's why I reached out to you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And what our whole mission of why we even started this channel was to try to reach as many families as we could while there's still time to help them wake up and become aware and prepared and take care of so their families can survive and thrive going forward. And that still remains our mission. It hasn't changed since day one. And so we're trying this as a way of augmenting our bringing in of experts, because experts can tell you about the landscape and give you insight that you wouldn't, to help you see what you otherwise wouldn't see. I mean, like a docent at the museum or something who can just help you open things up for you. But we hope that it'll be very helpful to individuals who are thinking this stuff through, talking this stuff through, fighting it through, arguing it through as a family, as a husband and wife or whoever, and trying to figure out what they need to do to hear the journey that other people have had. As you think through kind of the steps in your journey, you mentioned being that the one who was worthy of getting laughed at by the family for being too early at being prepared or whatever. We'll see about that aspect of it as far as the food and everything. We saw maybe a taste of it during COVID when things were less available and there were empty shelves in certain items. Any particular awarenesses in that area of food or other physical preparedness that you've learned along the way that you think would be worthy of sharing?
Well, I think I'm going to answer this question a little differently, but I think lately you've been promoting the people that listen to your channel, that believe what we're doing, that live, talk, walk the walk, right? To share the ideas and talk to their friends and neighbors and family. And if the one thing that I've learned from this is that by example, we can spread the word that you've been, like you said, this is the purpose of your channel, on the ground to people, and lead by example, and also share the knowledge and the experiences so that our friends and family can, pick up when they're ready. I think you talked about this before. Not everyone's ready to prep. Not everyone's ready to turn their money into gold and silver. But if we can all live by example and help them, I think that's what I've tried to do. And you actually know, example for me, I had a family member do a sizable purchase with you guys about a year ago at that same time when I got the religion, who has never listened to me about anything in his life before. It actually happened to be my father. And he called and, did a reasonably sized purchase from you. And, I spoke to him the other day and he bought a little bit, when gold and silver were a little higher. And I asked him, I said, keep the faith. And he said he doesn't even look at the price. He's so convinced he did the right thing and he sleeps at night. So to me, that's how we can help people the most.
See, that kind of real intrinsic preparedness is something that it's like when Joel Salatin, the teaching farmer who's we've had on several times from Polyface Farms, he says when you have a larder full of food in your cellar and you have a cistern full of drinkable water and you've got crops growing and stuff, he says it gives you a very different kind of rest at night. Rather than worrying, where's my breakfast going to come from tomorrow if the markets crash or whatever, and just that sense of peace. I'm really grateful to hear that that happened for your dad, and it's quite a distance from that to saying, kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that some rarity might explode in value in the future. That sort of that song and dance that's being promoted with a different narrative. Because it's something you have control over rather than something you don't have control over. Any more thoughts that come to mind as you think back over the years of your journey towards and through preparedness, as well as sort of financial, getting things of intrinsic value that stand out to you as far as key wake-up moments or key turning points?
Bill Holter is one of my favorite guests of yours, and I think he does a really good job of preaching or talking to the balance, right? So if you can have all the gold and silver in the world, but if you don't have drinking water, what's the point, right? And vice versa, you could have all the drinking water and farmland, but if people are going to climb the fence and steal all your food, that doesn't do any good either. So, what I've learned is or something I'm conscious of is keep the balanced approach, of having, try to have as many bases covered. And I think you've said on the channel too, we still can't prepare for everything, and they're going to, things are going to happen that we couldn't even think of. But the more well-rounded, balanced preparation plan that we have, I think the better. And one more thought that just comes to mind is none of your guests really preach the all-in or talk to is the all-in approach, right? And I caution anyone who's listening to this that's thinking about following through more is that's very true. And I've been tempted. I've even called you sometimes trying to get in, pushed every loose coin that I had in the bank into the vault. And, 3 weeks later, there's a market, a spike down in price where I wish I could have, bought in some more, or, a big bill comes up and I'm kind of short in, as they say, fiat dollars, but I got a lot of coins in the vault. So I would caution people to balance approach and also be very wary of the all-in strategy, right? The 5, 10, 20, 30% as your guests often speak to, makes sense, and I strain myself to stick to that as well.
Yeah, I remember when people ask that question of how much should I save of my investable net worth into precious metals, and one of the answers that gets quoted quite often is Bill Holter's answer, and that's how much do you not want to lose. And there's, I think he's sincere. He means it. And that's when you really think it through, it's certainly a potential that we may see a time come where all the dollars that we have are worthless and it's only the real things that we have that are going to retain value. So in that case, that may be. But meanwhile, we're here in this twilight time where we still have to transact, and we don't want to find ourselves in a tough pinch where you don't have the flexibility. Even Rick Rule talks about maintain cash liquidity and maintain bullion liquidity, not just have a stack of bullion where then if you got to repair the washing machine, now all of a sudden you got to liquidate some metals at a very non-advantageous time. So it gives you more control over the situation. But I guess we all are aware that the dollars we've got, even paper dollars, are being drained of their value just through this magical fact that they aren't an intrinsic asset. They're a note of debt obligation, and that's under control of someone else. We don't really own them. Any last thoughts about kind of the philosophy that you've come to, that you're going to be carrying forward, that's going to guide you going forward, that you think might be of use to other people to be aware of so they can think it through for themselves?
Yeah, I think we covered most of the points. Is do your own research, work with respected people, and do what you feel is right. And I can tell you, I sleep better from the process, and especially working with Dunnigan and Miles Franklin. I really appreciate the service you guys provide.
One more thing, anything that you have now learned. You mentioned setting an example, maybe as one of the best ways of influencing others. Do you have any specific habits that you're starting to practice as far as how you talk or don't talk to people about this, either family, friends, people you encounter in the world, just as you go through your life, how you're finding it useful to reach out to others?
I think what people always say in the prepper community and even in the quote unquote conspiracy community is you're not going to change people's minds overnight. You're not going to be able to make a convincing presentation at the dinner table and make, get somebody to do something. It's a process. And I think, like we said before, you lead by example, you share information, you give both sides of arguments, you are open-minded with them, and you share. And, people's light bulb goes off at different times for different people. And I find it satisfying when, over years of somebody not paying attention to anything you say or think, and then all of a sudden they call you out of the blue and say, hey, that guy you work with at the coin shop, or can you give me his number? And that's you. And then I give them your number, and I share the YouTube video with them, and they start watching. But it's definitely a process. Nobody's going to jump into this world, in my experience, overnight or just based on any one thing you say.
That's been my experience in life in general. You mentioned sort of awakening to conspiracy realities or whatever, that was something that would have been natural to evangelize people about. You realize that's not the best way to approach people successfully. And my wife and I have been involved in various support groups and things in the past that we've learned, just try to set an attractive example through your life rather than necessarily trying to go kind of try to pull people out of the mindset that they're in. I guess that's just one last thing, if we could touch on it, is that's one of the biggest challenges, why it takes time, why it's wise and prudent, as you mentioned, to plant seeds and plant seeds and let them sprout and other people come back when they're ready, is that everybody's living within kind of a bubble of their own paradigm or their own model or vision of their beliefs of what the world is and what's true and what they can trust and what they can count on. And we're all getting, I believe, betrayed big time. Jim Rawls, who we interview from survivalblog.com, says, and this is the last few years, he's been saying, we're living in the age of deception and betrayal. So it sometimes takes until someone has experienced that undeniably in their own life of that betrayal by some institution or whatever that they trusted before they'll go, oh, maybe Bill did know what he was talking about, and then come back and show curiosity. Has that been your experience as far as people that have coming to a belief that it may be possible that they've been laboring under a misconception about the reality of our world that we're living in?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a little frustrating that after we had this pandemic event, that I think the risk is that people are not seeing the link of that event to, what we see, what's happening in the financial markets. They see it as a one-time event, 2 years in history. It's closed out, it's done. Now we get back to normal. And I think now we get into a little sophisticated thinking, right? So you get Alistair McLeod, who can talk to this for hours about how that event is going to lead to the financial collapse versus it being two independent events. So we all have this struggle of getting people to wake up to what's happening in with single events. But then when you start stringing events together, it gets even more complicated. And that's why my experience, I like listening to people like Alistair, because he ties in 2008 with the pandemic, with government spending, with the banking, and with Europe and Asia. And, he strings a whole bunch of events. Most people, that would be too much. So I think we're all going to have that challenge, is connecting the dots for people that is getting more and more sophisticated and complicated. That's I think is going to be the challenge. Because people are fatigued, right? Everyone's fatigued. The event happened, pandemic's over. I want to get back to normal life. Leave me alone.
Right. We're naturally seeking relief from the cognitive dissonance and the stress and everything that we've been under, and would like to have relapse into comfort and convenience and being able to just assume and trust that things are as they should be. And it's very much takes a lot more fortitude to grapple with the possibility and the emerging awareness of the reality that things are not as you were told that they were, and they haven't been for a long time. That's why it's been so difficult for me when I interview Wayne Jett, the author of Fruits of Graft, The Great Depression Then and Now, talking about how FDR and those around him absolutely not only planned, advanced, and deepened and worsened the Great Depression and made it harder on people by that, gold confiscation, and then the banks taking people's properties, their farms, etc. And all of so much that could have been avoided was not was done intentionally. It's that notion of premeditated and pre-planned, cold, calculating destruction of, impoverishing of an entire middle class, etc. That's so hard to come to accept and to grapple with in our hearts, because we just don't want to believe that the world could be like that. I'm sure that's something that you've encountered too in your conversations with people you care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a saying in my family is that until someone at the kitchen table or the Thanksgiving dinner table has been impacted by something, people don't really pay attention. That's why I think your story about how you got locked out of your money market, your safe and guaranteed, can't lose money market account, you lived it. And I guess until people, I've experienced getting laid off from my jobs a couple times, so I know what it's like. But somebody that's been in a 30-year career and hasn't had any ripples and can't relate to that. So unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is one day we're all going to wake up to a banking issue, and we're not going to have, like you say all the time, it's too late, right? So we wake up on a Monday morning and the banks are closed and cash isn't available, and we're going to digital currency and whatever they have planned for us. It's going to be too late. And that's the hard part, is people are going to wait for that moment and then react, and it's going to be too late.
Well, Bill, it's been very generous of you to be willing to talk about this. I mean, you actually reached out to me and said, hey, do you think it might be of value? And I think it was a great idea. And it's funny because we've been spending most of the time on our channel focusing on interviewing experts, the highest level, most connected experts that we can find in the various topical areas. And I think that's a good thing. But it's also maybe even more helpful in some ways to talk to people who are making the journey, going through the thought process, grappling with the difficulties that you encounter and overcoming them and moving forward, that may be helpful to people as well, seeing how an ordinary person just like themselves has made that journey. So anyway, I'm grateful to you because I think that advances our overall mission here on Liberty and Finance of trying to help as many families as we can to be aware and prepared, survive and thrive in what's coming and what's already upon us. So any final thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah, so thank you, Dunnigan. I hope this was helpful. And where I also got this idea is a lot of times I read the comments to your videos and I read comments on financial articles. And a lot of times people will even say, oh, I don't even watch the video, or I don't even read the article. I go to the comments because some of the smartest comments are from the people, in the comment section. So I hope maybe this opens up the door for you to expand who you talk to, and we get some of the not me, but the smart people out there that are in the shadows, and they get a chance to give their views so we can all learn from each other as well.
Well, Bill, appreciate you stepping up and reaching out. And we've been speaking with Bill M. from Florida, giving his own personal testimony and journey of his road into awareness, preparedness, and eventually stacking and trying to evangelize his family in his own way of taking action. And good on you also for giving gifts of silver to family members. I've heard that that's a real common theme that people do. It really is a very tangible way to communicate. That can be helpful when you're talking about something that's real, is to do it in a real way. So David Morgan, longtime anchor of our guest roster, says that he often carries a silver round in his pocket so he can hand it to a server at a restaurant as a tip or whatever, and then they'll start a conversation. And amazing how it can facilitate educating people. So anyway, thank you, Bill, for being here. Really appreciate it, and look forward to more stories like this to help us all see how to walk the path to real freedom and preparedness for the good of our families.
Thank you, Dunnigan.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.